I'm sure you've heard the expression, every man has a price. Well, in Chicago, that's certainly true. And in 1977, a group of investigative journalists sought to find out who those men were and what that price was. And the Mirage Tavern was born. Originally called the Firehouse, it was a rundown drinking establishment located at 731 North Wells Street in Chicago. It was purchased by the Chicago Sun-Times in 1977 to investigate widespread allegations of official corruption and shakedowns visited on small businesses by city officials. The journalists used hidden cameras to help ensure that city inspectors caught accepting payoffs for ignoring safety hazards that were deliberately created for the sole purpose of enticing officials were captured. In May of 1977, journalist Pam Zekman and Better Government Association chief investigator Bill Rechnewald, using money from the Sun-Times, purchased the tavern under the aliases Mr. and Mrs. Ray Patterson, and they renamed it the Mirage. Reporters A.N. Smith, who wrote the series, and Better Government Association investigator Jeff Allen posed as the bartender and manager, with Mr. Smith being known as Nordy while tending the bar. Sun-Times photographers Gene Pasek and Jim Frost posed as repairmen and were in charge of photographing the tavern's activities from a hidden section of the tavern built over the washrooms. Corrupt practices ran the gamut from shakedowns to tax fraud. The shakedown amounts were small, typically less than $100, as the reporters learned of what they later called the supermarket approach to graft, low prices and high volume, that inspectors tended to prefer as the safest way of doing illegal business. Among others, a city electrical inspector agreed to overlook the tavern's faulty wiring. A fire department lieutenant agreed to sign off on the tavern's grand opening, despite the loose electrical wiring hanging from the rafters and basements piled high with flammable trash against regulations. A city health inspector ignored maggots and sink drains that emptied down to the basement floor. A state liquor inspector ignored fruit flies in the liquor. All these things were left in place deliberately, of course, to fertilize the environment for bribery. Also reported were illegal kickbacks from pinball operators and jukebox operators at the AA Swing Time Music Company. Philip J. Barash, a local accountant who went by the moniker Mr. Fix-It, gave the new owners of the bar extensive lessons on how to keep 2 sets of accounting books, to skim profits without paying tax, and advised them exactly what time of day inspectors showed up and how much their shakedowns would typically cost. He also suggested including his business card with any payoff to help smooth over the shakedown process. The only officials he warned against bribing were the police, noting that if you pay off a cop, they keep coming around every month like flies looking for a payoff. The Mirage owners, after hearing Barash's tax advice, hired 6 more accountants specializing in small tax businesses and were counseled by all of them to commit the same type of fraud. Once the Mirage series was published in a 25-episode expose, it gave rise to major reforms, including city code revisions, new procedures in city inspections, and investigations at the state, federal, and city levels. The IRS sent in 20 agents to take a closer look at tax fraud by cash businesses, and the Illinois Department of Revenue formed a new investigative unit. You can guess it. It was called the Mirage Audit Unit. An ongoing federal investigation spurred by the Mirage findings managed indictments of a third of the city's electrical inspectors in 1978, with many more indictments that came later. And after operating for several months as a Venus flytrap for unscrupulous officials, it was quietly closed and unceremoniously sold to become the Brehon Pub, as it is still known to this day. And just as an aside, this reporter spent quite a few lunchtimes there, as my old boss from another restaurant, Romero, was the manager. And you know, the entire time that I was in there, I always felt as though we were being watched. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.